Welcome to Attenuation, a podcast where two friends come together to drink beer, discover brewing history, and delve into the latest trends in the ever-evolving world of craft beer. From hobby IPAs to rich stouts, we are your companions on this hop-forward journey. If you enjoy your time with us, we invite you to become a weekly listener and subscribe to the podcast. And now, grab a pint, sit back, and enjoy this episode of Attenuation, a beer podcast.
Hello, and welcome to episode 103 of Attenuation, a beer podcast. My name is Jason, and I'm joined by my best friend since 8th grade, Steven.
Hello.
How's it going, sir?
So good. Good to be back on the podcast.
Yeah, my favorite thing, recording the podcast and drinking good beer.
Well, you just got a Tower box, so you're rolling in the good beer.
Yeah, I got one yesterday, and I spent way too much money on it. I told Steven, I was texting him, I was like, I gotta delete the app again and wait.
Well, the pre-orders are out of control right now.
Yeah.
Like everything they release now is a pre-order. It's like
their New Year's resolution was only pre-orders.
Hey, they're sticking to it for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying. I don't know. It's probably better for them too. And then I wonder if they're making, especially for something that's like not produced, I wonder if they're like coordinating with the brewery so they can get an idea of like how much extra they should make that they can sell on tap or whatever.
It's sort of Kickstarter-ish, right? Like if you know pre-sell, if you don't get them, then you just refund them, I guess. I don't know. It's weird. I do appreciate though they are telling you when, like about when it will drop. Like they give you they do give you like an estimated date, so that's good. So you can kind of plan your box a little bit better, and
that's new too, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I noticed that
maybe
too.
I wasn't noticing it before, but
yeah, no, I totally noticed that. It'd be like, oh, this will be in your crate like mid-February or whatever, so you can kind of strategically plan around it. But yeah, that's like the one of the things I'm usually pretty good about, being disciplined. But Tavor is so dangerous. You can really because there's not like a good metric. They would never do this. I guess you could look at your crate and add everything up, but you just like add something and then you're like, okay, I just added that, but you don't like think about the totality of everything.
How
exactly.
You know, like you could set a budget for your whole box and then just start deducting from that.
That's what I should do.
Well, that's what makes like pre-ordering hard, because like you like spend money early before you really want to, and I don't know, it's just makes it a lot harder to plan.
Maybe that's their real motivation for the pre-orders. They're just trying to make it even harder to track how much money you're spending on it.
Exactly.
All right. Well, anyways,
they get you with the FOMO. That's the big one. The FOMO.
Oh yeah,
I feel like I'm gonna miss something and never get it again.
Yeah, some stuff sells out really fast. I was actually like losing my mind because I missed something. I was complaining to Steven, and then I was looking into like, I was like, how is stuff selling out so fast? And then I forgot there's like the Tavor Prime people.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out if that still exists. Yeah. I feel like a lot of good stuff is filtering through, but sometimes I feel like when something hits the app and then sells out within like less than a minute, I'm wondering like, I wonder if like that was just like the tail end of what the people in the premiere saw. Yeah. But it's invite only, and they invited me once and I said no. And then I feel like I don't spend enough. That was a time in my life when I was spending so much money on Tavor. But we had 2 incomes at that time. That they're like, oh, this sucker will pay for this. And I said no, and I haven't been invited back since. So I'm not a whale. Yeah, I know. I should email them and be like, hey, can you let me in? But anyways, okay. So today we're going to talk about
some beer.
Yeah, we're going to talk about.
Go ahead.
We haven't even introduced the topic yet, Steven.
Oh my gosh.
Like 5 minutes in. Okay, we're going to do beer adjuncts, additives, labeling, and disclosures.
Which is more interesting than it sounds.
I told my wife.
Stay with us.
Yeah, I told my wife. She's like, what are you guys going to talk about? And I told her. I was like, oh, Steven has this idea. And she's like, that sounds really boring. And I was like, I thought so too. And then I found an article about beer label rules, and it's really interesting. She didn't believe me, so. But we're going to prove her wrong. Okay, now we can drink beer.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, first segment is Drink a Beer segment. So the way this works is I introduce my beers, give nose notes, Steven does the same, and then we cheers and give tasting notes. So, fresh off my Tavor box, and in honor of Adjuncts, which is one of our topics, I'm going to be drinking a Milkshake IPA. This is double...
My favorite style.
Yeah, so Steven doesn't like... Okay, I think I like Milkshake IPAs. I haven't had a good one for a long time. I liked them when they first got popular, which I feel like was a while ago.
Yeah.
And then I haven't really drank one, but one popped up, the number 5th rank one on Beer Advocate just popped up on Tavor, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to try this. And I think you got one too. And this will be the make or break for Steven if he likes Milkshake IPA or not.
Yeah, I have one coming in a box. The box is on my way, or on its way to me.
Yeah, so, well, and part of the problem, I think we talked about this before, but I think they got really popular and everyone did one. And there was like a lot of bad ones out there. But I think the good ones, when done right, are good. But I honestly don't remember, so this is going to be kind of a test for me too. So this is a Citra and Strata hopped Milkshake double IPA. And then they add oranges and vanilla. And I assume lactose. And this is 9.5%.
Dang.
And then I'm also going to be drinking, actually I'm going to do 2, because one of my new rules is not to drink things in isolation. I'm going to drink Juicy Bits, because this apparently tastes a lot like orange. And Juicy Bits is from, Double Blazed Orange is from Hop Butcher for the World, which is in Chicago, I think. And then Juicy Bits is from Weldwerks. And Juicy Bits, I think, they have a similar hop bills, I think.
Citra and Mosaic, I think.
Yeah, Citra and Mosaic. Okay, so the Double Blazed Orange, I should turn off my blur. It's very opaque. Has a super thick head. And I'm laughing because it smells like an orange creamsicle. Legit. And then Juicy Bits is also pretty opaque. It's a little bit more straw colored. Less head. Okay, let's see. I'm glad I opened both of these. It's illuminating to smell them next to each other. So the Double Blazed Orange smells so much like a creamsicle. It's like orange and vanilla. It doesn't even smell like beer. There's like maybe a tiny bit of hop on the tail end of the nose. And it does smell very sweet as well. So you're getting like that grain bill. It does not smell like beer though. It does not. Because especially when you smell Juicy Bits, I'm like, oh, this is beer. Like the Double Blazed Orange doesn't even like register as beer to my brain. Juicy Bits has way more, like you're getting way more of like the hop aromas. Oh, it smells dank. And a little bit of like just more the things you would normally smell in an IPA, like orange peel, citrus, pineapple, maybe even like a little guava or passion fruit. It just reads to my brain like an IPA, more like an IPA. So okay, this is gonna be super interesting. All right, Steven, what are you drinking?
Okay, because we record less frequently now, I really try to just drink the best beer in my fridge, and that currently is Hubbard's Cave Barrel-Aged El Zacaton.
Oh, no, you're not. Nice. I'm so excited.
So this is 2022 Barrel-Aged El Zacaton from Hubbard's Cave. They are in Niles, Illinois, and they're there's 2 sides to this brewery. They have Hubbard's Cave and then Une Ane is the other side. Not quite sure. I know like Une Ane is more like their wild ale sour side. Hubbard's Cave does more of the IPAs and stouts and stuff. I don't know if that's a wild bacteria thing. Like they completely separate those breweries or what. I'm not sure.
So they're not physically connected at all?
I don't actually know.
Okay.
I could look into that. I could postscript that.
Yeah, that'd be a good postscript. Because isn't it?
Why they have 2.
Am I wrong? Russian rivers like that, right? Don't they keep it totally separate?
Yeah.
Just to
yeah,
they just don't want to infect their non-sour brewery. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a barrel-aged Imperial Stout. It's fermented on toasted oak with almond flour, chocolate, cinnamon, vanilla, ancho chilies, guajillo chilies, and habanero chilies.
Yeah, I was obsessed with this style. I still really like it, but it's that spicy stout where they put the...
Have you had the barrel-aged version?
I don't think I've ever had the barrel-aged version. I love regular El Zacaton, but I think the barrel-aged one is going to be special. Okay,
so this is obviously black, dark, like a very dark ring of bubbles around the outside, but with a lot of lacing. So very thick, sticky. Just a really classic barrel-aged stout aroma with some good chocolate and espresso notes. The chili heat is there, but just in the back, like very complimentary in the aroma at least. Certainly some vanilla and toasted vanilla oak aromas coming off there too. Okay, I'm intrigued.
I think you're gonna like it. All right, cheers, sir.
Cheers.
Okay, wow, this is fun to try these 2 together. I don't know if I like Milkshake IPAs anymore. You win, Steven. Well, this is what I think. When I first had it, it kind of like blew me away because it wasn't really like anything else I had ever had. But now that I've had a ton of like New England hazy style beers, I feel like they do something very similar, but they still read in my brain as beer. Where this Milkshake Double Blazed Orange IPA, it almost doesn't read like beer. It's like the sours. What are the sours I hate?
Like a smoothie sour.
Yeah. It's like when I when I drink a smoothie sour, I'm like, okay, this is just like alcohol in fruit. Like it doesn't read to me as beer. And the same thing I think is true of this Milkshake IPA. Like it's so much like, so my tasting notes were sweet orange, mango, develops into vanilla, bitter hops, orange rind, long vanilla finish, but it really just tastes like a orange creamsicle. Like it tastes like someone melted an orange creamsicle and put it in a glass, which is actually like pretty awesome. Like it's cool they pulled that off. And there is hops in there for like a second, but wow, it really just tastes like an orange creamsicle.
It's like I remember getting this like I feel like it was Evil Twin, and it was like a sour IPA.
Mm-hmm.
It was like blue raspberry or something, sour IPA. And I drank it and I was like, I don't know where they get an IPA from. But like, it's like the IPA is an afterthought.
Actually, yeah, that's like a very astute evisceration of the style. Because like, this is not an IPA. It doesn't
like
have...
Like you use hops.
Right.
But you've amped, and don't get me wrong, I love like an amped up fruited IPA. Grapefruit on the Tracks and blood on the tracks.
Yeah.
From Blue Note. I don't mind when they add some blood orange or grapefruit or something like that to an IPA. What's Overripe from Great Notion with the mangosteen and that's like top 3 beers right now for me. I love that beer, so I don't mind that. I think maybe it's just the lactose, the overly sweet, and the over vanilla. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is, but it's like they've taken that idea of amping up these hop flavors, but like way past where you should.
Well, they've like totally drowned out the things that make it an IPA. Like it's nowhere near, like it doesn't taste like a West Coast IPA at all, other than maybe the sweetness, but there's like almost no bitterness, like balancing it out. It's more akin to like a hazy, like New England style, but even then it's like, I don't know, because I'm tasting it right next to Juicy Bits, which actually my tasting notes are kind of similar. It's really funny. It's like sweet orange, green melon develops into like fresh orange juice, but then you get that counterpunch of like the dank hops and the finish is bitter. And that to me is like, I mean, we've talked about this 1,000 times, but the IPA is all about the balance of those two forces. Whereas like, I just feel like on the Milkshake IPA, there's no counterpunch from there's no bitter. There's no counterbalancing force. So it's still good, don't get me wrong, but it's like, it's just, I feel like it's drinking a milkshake. It's like a dessert. So the other night, my wife and I split from Great Notion, the triple strawberry. It's basically a smoothie sour. And yeah, it's just like, well, it was really funny because my wife was like, buy more of these. Like, where'd you get this? Like, she loved it. But again, it was like a dessert. It was like drinking like a dessert wine or something like that. So, I don't know. I think they have their place. My final observation on this, I'll give it a thumbs up within its style, but I'd have to be in the mood to drink it. The other observation, we scanned in the pre-roll we were just discussing, I scanned like the top 10 of this style, so the Milkshake IPA style. And I've only had this one, but a lot of them sound like they're orange. Like it sounds like the height of the style is making like a orange creamsicle style. And so it's kind of one-dimensional. So I think they pulled it off really well in this beer, but yeah, I don't know. I'd rather drink at the end of the day, like having these two side by side. I'd rather drink Juicy Bits, like 9.5 times out of 10, because it like just reads this beer, and I'm still getting this really cool like, whoa. I feel like for a second I felt like I was drinking orange juice, but then like that only lasts for like a second, right? then all the other elements of drinking a really good craft beer are like supporting the fact that it tastes like orange juice for a second. Whereas the double glazed orange, like it kind of just like tastes like I'm drinking a melted creamsicle. All right, thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
The other direction I think they go commonly is strawberry.
Oh, okay.
They kind of lean into the berry flavors that hops can give. I don't really like strawberry in my beer anyway.
Okay.
In general, so maybe that's why I haven't really liked this style. We'll see. I'm sure the orange one does sound good. It's good.
I think it's you have to be, if you're in the mood and you know what you're gonna get, I think it's perfectly fine. Would I want like one in my fridge all the time? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So somehow it was a confluence of things between getting a Tabor box and my friend bringing me some beers from a local brewery. Anyway, I had a ton of smoothie sours in my fridge at once. And first off, like, because it's January and I do the thing that everybody does, is kind of like, I try to clean up my diet a little bit in the new year. And so every time I look in the fridge, I'm like, big old juice bomb in my fridge. Like, do I have the calories for that?
I know, right?
So anyway, I've been trying to get through these smoothie sours, and it's kind of the same way with like milkshakes, IPAs. Like, there's a lot of bad ones.
Yeah,
there's just a lot of bad ones, and even within the breweries that make good ones, there's a lot of bad ones. And so I think that's like the hardest thing about the milkshake IPA and smoothie sour beer style is that like it's so hard to get a good one. Because, like, sure, just read the label and be like, oh, yeah, those fruits all sound good. But, like, how do they end up balancing out? And, like, does it just sort of get lost in the, like, oh, this is just a thick beer smoothie? I don't know. It's weird. And I don't trust people on Tabor anymore because every smoothie sour is rated 4.5 for some reason.
Well,
it's juice, I don't know.
You can go listen to our episode about beer ratings, but I hate, like, probably once a week I send, I'm so, I don't know.
Yeah, you've been doing that more often
I'm
now.
getting so annoyed because I'm using Untapped again because it is a really good way. It's a really great way to record your beers. And I like that you can like upload a picture and like, I just kind of want to register so I can quickly look back and see like, because I lose track of stuff. Like, oh, do I want to order this again? Do I want to drink this again? But I read the reviews on there. I hate... Every time I see a review that, like, just boils my blood, I screenshot it and send it to Steven. It's like, what did I send you the other day? Someone wrote, like, motor oil, yummy. That was, like, their review. And I was like, who does this... This literally helps no one. This helps no one. Why did you record this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess like your participation in the app helps, right?
Oh,
like,
I'm raising the bar, Steven, because I write like full tasting notes.
You have to, right?
Yeah.
You have to do your part to at least.
And hey, if you just want to rate it and you don't want to make a comment, that's fine, but don't put nonsense in there. Like,
see, that's what I hate. I actually don't appreciate the just ratings too, because that doesn't help me either.
Yeah, but I think you're right.
People's rating systems, I think, are.
Well, and we talked about it in the episode. They should just go back and listen to it. But, everyone has their own interpretation of, like, the 1 to 5 scale. Yeah. So for some people, an average is 2.5. But for some people, like, 4 is fine. So I do think that's why probably the smoothie sour kind of levels out at 4.5. Because, like, if you have most people taste the smoothie sour, they're going to be like, oh, that's good. Yeah,
Yeah, so. Exactly. Right, you're not like,
oh, that was gross.
Within the range of smoothie sours, where did this land?
Exactly.
Like, oh no, it tastes like sweet juice. I guess it's good, right?
Someday, in my perfect world, I used to complain about same thing with like Rotten Tomatoes. This is way too nuanced for reality, but it's true of both Rotten Tomatoes and scoring beer. I wish there was a twin score. So you rate something overall, and then you rate something within its specific category. So, like, if you like really cheesy horror films, obviously the Rotten Tomato scores are going to be low, because as like a piece of art, they're just not going to register with like critics. But maybe for the genre of really bad, cheesy horror movies, this is like a masterpiece. So I'd love to see. It'll just never exist because this is too much for. You have to be so deep down the rabbit hole of like the hobby or movies or whatever. But I'd love to see like, oh, overall this movie is like a 1 of 5 stars. Obviously it's garbage, but if you like really cheesy horror movies, it's a 4.5 out of 5. Had that twin score would be so fascinating.
Yeah, well, that's why you'll get styles like table beers or beers that aren't necessarily as complex, like lagers and stuff. Where on Beer Advocate, like even the best lager, I don't know what the score is, but it may be an 89 or something. You know, like, but you just have to look at the best lagers list and kind of see like what is technically a good
the number
lager,
one.
Because,
that's actually a good point.
It's like an 88 or 89. At least that gives you some sort of benchmark for.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. I mean,
the lagers aren't ever going to do as good as Imperial Stouts and stuff.
Yeah. So. No, you're right. I guess there is that. You can always look at the rank list of just the style, and that is a good way to figure out like where it stacks up against itself. You know, other beers of its style.
Yeah.
So I guess.
Ideally, you would have 100 lager also. Yeah. Your number one lager should be 100.
It should be because it's 100. It's the best lager.
The perfect. Yeah.
But of all lagers that exist, but
Bob says that's never gonna happen.
No, you have too many people that just click 5 and write yummy.
Motor oil.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean? Does it actually taste like motor oil? And you like motor oil? Okay. All right. So thumbs up for your beers.
Yeah, thumbs up for Double Blaze Orange if you're in the mood to drink a melted creamsicle. And just across the board, thumbs up for Juicy Bits.
Yeah. One of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, it's so
good. You need a Juicy Bits versus, like, contains no juice, or Fieldworks Pulp would be a good comparison to that. Okay.
What do you think of El Zacaton
barrel-aged El Zacaton? It's pretty awesome.
Yes.
So, it's a lot thinner than I expected, and that may be because of the time. This is a 2022.
Okay.
So really it's had like almost 2 years, the cellar. So that may have thinned it out. I don't know. I don't have a lot of comparison in my mind to the original El Zacaton. But yeah, thinner. And that may be barrel related as well. So I'm getting tons of Hershey's syrup, and maple syrup.
Oh, interesting.
And when I say Hershey syrup and maple syrup, I do mean sweet. It's pretty sweet. Surprisingly sweet. Just amazing chocolate, like milk chocolate and maple syrup flavors.
Okay.
And then there's this heat that comes from the chilies. And it's sort of replacing booze heat, kind of. Like it's hard to tell.
Interesting.
You know, like if you take a shot of Fireball or something, like there's like cinnamon, but also kind of booze heat.
It's like signal confusion. Yeah.
And that's kind of how this is. It's like spicy, like with the throat burn. Hard to tell between whether it's the chilies or the booze.
What is the ABV again?
13%.
Okay, so it's pretty high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not like... I feel like the aroma, like the chili aroma that I was getting in the nose was more pleasant than the chili burn that I'm getting in my throat.
Okay.
I'm not a huge spicy food fan.
Yeah.
I like spicy things. We have some really good, like, Nashville hot chicken, southern, hot chicken here. In Texas, it's really, really good. I like burn sometimes. But, again, I think somebody who, like, maybe like you, I think you like spicier foods than me. You'd probably like this more.
Yeah.
But, it goes away. Like, it doesn't linger too long.
Okay.
It's
just
nice
like a part of the experience.
Yeah. And then, it has 3 different kinds of chilies in this beer, so it's a good, like, wood char to the finish, too, like a bitter wood char. It's fantastic.
Oh,
it really is. It's incredible for a beer that, like, is bound, like, basically doing, like, a Mexican hot chocolate kind of thing here, and it's incredible. The sweetness, the spiciness, it's like good Thai food,
Yeah.
It's just all those sort of very conflicting flavors balancing just right, and yeah, they nailed it.
Dang, I really want the barrel-aged one now. I actually have a non-barrel-aged.
Mole.
Yeah, mole.
Kind of like, yeah.
Well, that's why I think that I don't know when that style got popular. I feel like maybe the first time we went to the beer fest, that was a long time ago, Steven. But I remember that style particular, like exactly what you said, like the basically like spicy Mexican chocolate style. A bunch of people were doing it, and I was like in love with all of them because I love spicy food. So, and I do love that interplay of like the sweet chocolate and the spice, and yeah, that sounds cool. You're making me want to go drink my non-barrel aged Zacaton that I have in the fridge.
Like, I remember there was it was one of the first years at the beer festival was Weldwerks, and they had a taquito goza or something. Okay. And they had a taquito in it. I don't know if you remember that. It's like a taco beer. Mm-hmm. and I remember it being like super spicy and thinking like, oh, it's hard to like drink a spicy thing.
Yeah.
Like to drink a spicy thing, because usually like you eat a spicy thing and then like cool it down with whatever you drink, you know? Sure. So that's a little weird for me, but honestly, like flavor wise and the cohesive flavors and the way that these conflicting flavors balance each other out is really incredible. Like they just did a really good job. So
nice. So thumbs up.
And I think the barrel gives it again that wood complexity. The like I think it gives it that more of that booze heat that plays with that chili heat. It's very interesting.
Yeah, when you
I wish you were here.
I know. I wish you could taste that.
Because I'm not gonna drink this.
You're like, I'm not gonna finish it. Yeah. Honestly, even for me, those are hard to finish. Just because I don't know, it's such an experience. But drinking a lot of it that's a really good beer to share. So, but do you think you drink it? Is it a thumbs up?
A thumbs up.
Okay, cool.
Fantastic. Really.
Nice.
And like I'm drinking and it's warming up and it just feels. It's really nice. Really nice.
We live in the reality I predicted, Stephen, and the reality you predicted. I don't like.
Which is what? Drinking Imperial Stout, barrel-aged Stout? You drinking
barrel-aged Imperial Stouts, and me hating Milkshake IPAs. Actually, I still kind of like it, but I don't like it the same way I used to. All right. Yeah. Well, so we get to our next segments. We have... Yeah. So next segment is postscripts, where we fix things in previous episodes. Beer news, which is self-explanatory, and Storytime with Steve, which is also self-explanatory. So postscripts, we don't have one, but you just added one, and I don't want to forget it. And now I forgot it.
Oh yeah, what's the Hubbard's Cave Une and what's the deal with that?
Oh right, okay. So I'm gonna write that down. And then beer news. We have two good beer newses. And Steven's gonna cover both of them actually, because I don't know. It's first one is Freak Week, which I had no idea. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I just learned of this today, and I'm like fascinated by it. But other half just finished what's called Freak Week. Apparently, they do this every year, and it's been like 7 years in a row or something. And they get with other breweries, and it's like Freaky Friday, right? That's the
reference.
The Freak Week. So they trade recipes, and they make another brewery's like flagship beer. Like not just any beer, like their flagship beers. And then they slightly changed the names of them. Like they did Psycho Sue instead of Pseudo Sue from Toppling Goliath. So that's they made their version of Pseudo Sue. They made their version of insert hip hop reference there from Trillium. Oh, they made a 60-minute IPA from Dogfish Head.
Yeah.
They made that clone, and then there was one more, the Bale IPA. They made that one. So just a really cool thing. They make these 4 beers from a different brewery. I would love to try
How awesome would it be to do side-by-side tastings?
Like a other half's version of Pseudo Sue and
and try them and just see, because they'd be slightly if not totally different, just because one, that they don't have the experience. Well, obviously they're very experienced at brewing beer, but there's so many subtleties. Like think about when you cook a recipe, like the first time versus the 20th time. Just dial everything in. It'd be so interesting to try them.
Giving them recipes of like a beer you've brewed hundreds and hundreds of times, and then giving it to somebody else to try.
And like, really they're good at brewing beer, but like they never brewed this specific beer. Okay. It reminds me of this is like such a deep cut, Stephen. You can cut this out if you want. There's a science fiction book. I think it's called Anthem, and there's like this throwaway concept. It's one of the things I love about science fiction. This particular author does it a lot, but like where he has a really cool idea that he just wants to like tell people, so he just like puts it in a book. It almost has like nothing to do with the book. So this is like some futuristic society, and they made this grape, basically a wine grape that had the properties of all wine grapes. So imagine they made like a hop that could express the flavor profile of any hop in existence. And it was considered like the ultimate grape to make wine with. But like no two people could make the same wine with it. Because every little thing you did, like every single thing, like every temperature fluctuation, the barrel you put it in, would make it express like in a slightly different way. And for some reason that's what made me think of when you have like this different brewery brewing. Like they're following the exact same recipe, but it's in different equipment. It's done by different people. So the outcome is like it's going to slightly deviate, or maybe massively deviate from the original people making on their original equipment.
That's awesome.
But yeah.
I like that. I won't cut that.
All right. It would be cool if they could do that, like make a hop that could express every hop, and then like brewers could just make like every conceivable. I don't know. It'd be cool.
It's really interesting. Every once in a while, I'll see like a new hop come out.
Yeah.
They have a new one called, I want to say Allura hop is kind of a newer hop on the scene, and I guess I never really thought about how much they're constantly doing hop development, right? Like crossbreeding hop strains and stuff.
Yeah.
Like all the time. And it's a crazy hop because it's like super, super long. Like the shape of it is even interesting. So with like more thiols than ever. And
it's pretty cool. Interesting. They're like trying to find like new flavor profiles, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So Freak Week that just ended. Just a really cool idea, and I would love to try those. Maybe I'll just when I'm older and have
when we're retired, Steven, when we're retired, we're gonna we'll collect all the beer. We'll like pre-research what they're gonna make, and we'll just be those weirdos. We'll show up. We're gonna be old, but whatever. We won't care. We'll show up with like a cooler of all the original beers.
All the stuff we want to
we're gonna try these side by side.
Oh my gosh.
They'd probably be like, "Oh, cool. We want to try it with you."
Remember how it's like how we showed up at Balebreaker and when they released Mount St. Humulus, and like it was just a timing thing. It just happened to happen that way. But it was
perfect timing. Yeah.
Whoa, we'll just go and we'll look like we're in the know.
And we showed up so early, and those guys were like,
"No one else.
You guys know we don't open till like 2." And we're like, "Yeah, we didn't know if you'd be busy." He's like, "We'll be busy, but you'll be fine." Yeah. All right, next.
Other piece of beer news is what?
The New Jersey beer laws.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, this is like the best news.
Yeah.
They finally got legislation passed in New Jersey to change the beer laws. It did a bunch of cool things. One, it made it apparently a bunch of these liquor licenses that there was like a limited amount of liquor licenses available, and there were no new ones available basically. And the only way a new one would come available is if someone gave up or like one lapsed that was previously held. But like what was happening is that there were a lot of places that were holding multiple liquor licenses without it actually being tied to a place. Like they were just paying for them essentially, like renewing them,
but not sitting on them,
using them. Yeah. To kill competition or whatever their goal was. So they nixed that. If it hasn't been used in 2 years, it frees up. So it's going to free up like thousands of liquor licenses.
There's thousands that people are just sitting on?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was like 1,200 or something liquor licenses that they were set to be freed up. And probably more as they age out. So that's cool. So just easier to get a liquor license, thankfully, in New Jersey. But then the really great things for breweries that are already there, you don't have to do the tour anymore.
The tour, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to take them through a tour to have beer at your brewery. I didn't realize how much restriction there was on how much beer you could brew. So those restrictions have come off, or they were greatly increased. the restrictions on how many like events you could have, but like playing the football game on the TV was considered an event.
Yeah, wasn't that considered an event?
Yeah, and you can only do like 25 of those a year. So the number of events in your brewery, I don't think there's any restriction. There's a restriction on how many events you can do outside the brewery. So that may be like beer fests or like weddings or stuff like off-site brewery events. But anyway, that's like 25 now, but that'd be like one every other week or something. So
yeah,
not that big of a deal. It's mostly just being able to hold stuff like trivia nights and stuff like that.
And not having to like count.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the restrictions on like selling your beer, I don't think you could even sell on premises. Like, so if you had a beer, you couldn't just sell your can and sell it beer on premises. Like, you could distribute it out to grocery stores and stuff, but you couldn't sell it on premises, which is just
so stupid.
So it'd have to be on draft if you were going to sell something on premises. So now that's changed. So just a lot of good things, and they finally convinced the governor to.
They must be so happy if you own a brewery. Like if you own a brewery in New Jersey right now.
I would. Oh yeah. I mean, it was crazy how many posts were coming through New Jersey breweries. Like,
thank goodness.
Yeah, finally. So,
yeah,
that's cool. Really, really cool stuff.
That's good.
New Jersey. Coming around.
We have a happy beer news for once. Or I feel like our beer news for like the last 10 episodes have been like, oh, this place is closing.
Oh, well, brewery closure news. Beerberg Brewing, which is just down the road from Jester King. I mean, less than a mile from Jester King. They're closing. They officially closed yesterday on their 4th anniversary. Yesterday was their 4th anniversary.
That's brutal.
I really liked their stuff. I probably liked their location more. Just like their food was really, really good. They had like a full Mexican restaurant inside the brewery. And it was amazing food. And just they were like a really cool indoor and outdoor location. But yeah, just they couldn't hang.
Yeah.
So they did a lot of really cool stuff. Like Jester King does this too. They're very Jester King-esque, where they grow something on their farm, like on their property, and then like use it in their beer.
That's really cool.
So they would do a lot of stuff with like wild mushrooms and wild herbs and.
Okay, we've talked about them before. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a beer on the podcast. It was like a sumac goza or something. So yeah, a goza with weird adjuncts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot.
What are they? Dogfish head? Yeah.
Yeah, very much. But very, very committed to using local ingredients and ingredients that they farm themselves and stuff. So that was cool. They actually just had a beer festival at Beerberg called Beers Made by Walking or something. It was like all the beers were made with ingredients that they foraged essentially.
Oh, wow, that's so cool.
On the property. Yeah. So
that's a
just
bummer.
some really cool stuff, but a bummer that they're closing.
Well, there you go, Steven. You've ruined you continued our sad streak for beer news.
There's brewery closure news every week.
Yeah, really. I know. I don't know if the numbers are out, but we've predicted on the podcast that we've seen an inversion. So we believe that the total number of breweries in the U.S. is in decline after years and years and years of increasing numbers. What's
sad to me is when a brewery that's like Beerberg that makes good beer, when they go out of business, because there's some riffraff that I would be fine with them going.
Yeah.
I won't name any names about any breweries here, but there are a few that I could 100% do without.
Sure.
Like the beer's just not good, but maybe they're smaller, maybe their overhead costs aren't as big, and they're surviving better than other places. So.
Yeah, running a business is incredibly complex. Like, just because you have a good product doesn't mean you're necessarily being efficient.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, Beerberg's less than a mile down the road from Jester King. Jester King has much more visibility,
that's rough.
Nationwide notoriety. So a lot of people are going there. It's just sort of a remote area, so you kind of have to be going there.
Yeah, that's hard.
And if people are doing that, they're going to Jester King, right? Like we're going to go out to Dripping Springs and do a beer thing. That would be your number one stop. And then maybe, the way I found Beerberg, honestly, was the food at Jester King is a little weird.
Okay.
And I had my kids, and we were like, I don't think we want to eat here. Let's go eat somewhere else. And it was kind of hot, and Jester King is like all outside.
Yeah.
And so we were like, oh, there's one like just down the road, and oh, they have food. So that's how we found Beerberg.
Nice. You found it as overflow from Jester King. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can see how it's just hard to survive in like you're kind of in a remote area, and you're banking on beer tourism essentially.
Yeah.
Not just beer everyday people.
Yeah, location is so important. That's what they say. Location, location, location.
Yeah. So sorry, I didn't mean to add on sad beer news, but
that's okay.
You asked for it.
Well, cheer us up with your story time with Steve. I want to hear about. I was pretty jealous that you got to drink the Russian River / Pint House collaboration.
Yeah. So okay, kind of a crazy story. I'm off on Fridays, and they were dropping the beer on Friday at 11 a.m. When they opened, they were gonna have it on tap, and they were gonna have it to go. And I ended up that morning having a absolute terrible migraine.
Oh no!
And wasn't gonna be able to leave the house. And my wife and I were planning to just go down there, and honestly, I was planning on just having it on tap. And maybe getting a 4-pack if I wanted it or something. So I was like so upset. My wife was like, no, I'll go down there and I'll just pick you a 4-pack up just to make sure you get it.
Nice.
You know? So she went down and did that for me. And then the next day I felt much better, and we were like, oh, I think I looked online and saw that it was still on tap. So I was like, let's just head down there for lunch. So we went on the Saturday, and we're able to get it on tap as well. So I've got a 4-pack, and I got it on tap. There's a few breweries. I think Weldwerks, would fit into that category. There's a couple breweries where, at least to me, I've had enough of their beers that they have a distinct taste to them.
A profile, yeah.
Yeah, and Russian River is 100% that.
Okay.
Their IPAs just have this certain flavor to them, a certain, I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's yeast or their hop techniques or whatever, or the open fermentation thing maybe. It's just,
maybe.
Anyway, they just come out they have this incredible crisp pine hop flavor to them that just I don't know. It's just unlike any other brewery. It's very distinctly Russian River, and that's what this beer is. I think I didn't look too closely. I want to say this might be some sort of cold IPA.
Oh, okay.
Where they use maybe a lager yeast. I'm not sure, but there's a lot. That was actually something else I meant to talk about on this episode, is the resurgence of the cold IPA and the perfecting of that style. So I can't remember if this is that or not, but anyway, just a very, very crisp, clean, clear, but hoppy style.
Okay.
Very definitely bringing the pine and the dank. Not a lot of tropical fruit coming through. It's more the bitter grapefruit, the bright citrus.
The West Coast style.
But not malty.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Not in the sense of a sort of the old school West Coast IPA would be. It's a very, very light and bright. Yeah, fantastic.
Really, you liked it a lot. But so it sounds like you liked it, but it read more as a Russian River beer than a Pint House beer.
Yeah, because Pint House leans a little bit more into the new school, hazy IPA. Yeah,
Electric Jellyfish, baby.
Yeah, I mean they do a good job of balancing bitter and sweet and juicy. Not being some of their stuff. It's funny because now I go to Pint House so much, and I drink enough of their beers that there's other beers that I like better. Scorpion Disco is their West Coast IPA, and I much prefer that over.
Oh, really?
Jellyfish, yeah.
I want to try that.
Training Vines is another one they make. That's again it's just a hoppier, more my style. But Electric Jellyfish does appeal to the masses for sure. So, and it's a great beer.
It's a good beer, yeah.
Yeah. So my story is that I literally have a picture of me and Vinny standing next to each other. Vinny Chilurzo from Russian River. I'm in my Pint House flannel. And we talked about Pint House, and he said, "Oh yeah, I've been meaning to do a collaboration with them. Maybe we'll do that soon." And I was like, "Yeah, that would be awesome. Get on that." So I'm gonna take full credit for this.
I think you inceptioned it into his brain.
I mean, I have to at least feel like I sparked it.
I think you should. I think you should take full credit.
You know, he had thought about it. He talked to him about it, and that just sort of like, oh yeah, I need to do that, right? Like it just put it back up at the top of his to-do list.
Exactly, you just bumped it back to top. Not only do you I think you should take credit, I'm taking credit. But I think the podcast should take credit.
Okay. Well, you know, we got podcast magic, so we'll just chalk it up to podcast magic.
Podcast magic.
Yep.
That's awesome. That's cool. Well, I'm glad it was good, and I'm glad you got to try it. All right, so the main topic, an hour into recording, Steven. This is like a record.
Well, I do cut out a lot of time.
Oh, okay. So maybe it's not an hour.
I remember last episode we were like at an hour, and we said, go mark this spot. Ended up moving back to like 40 minutes. I got like 20 minutes of timeout.
Incredible. So look at the timestamp, and you'll know. You'll get some insight into the editing process. But yeah, no, this is cool. I mean, we don't record as often, so it's fun to catch up. So our main topic is kind of a four-parter. We got adjuncts, additives, labeling, and disclosures. So I think Steven's going to cover adjuncts and additives, and then I'm going to go down I went down kind of a rabbit hole on labeling while I was doing research for this episode.
So what drew me to this, actually, I was watching a Q&A with Cycle Brewing's owner. His name is Doug, I think. I can't remember his last name, but he's really cool. He does a lot of like educational reels on Instagram and just kind of like, what are we doing? Why do we do this? All this stuff. So he's just really cool. So he did this like hour-long live stream Q&A and just covered some really cool topics. And one of the things that he talked about a little bit was adjuncts and beer additives and that kind of stuff, and it just kind of got me down this road of what things do breweries have to put on, like have to say they put in their beer. What kind of things do they use to adjunct their beer and that kind of stuff. So one of the big things, like we were talking about with the Milkshake IPAs, is lactose.
Yeah,
it's a very, very common beer additive. It's used essentially as a non-fermentable sugar in the beer to sweeten it without raising the ABV, without, you're not feeding the yeast with lactose. You're just making the beer sweeter. But there are people who are lactose intolerant.
True.
And, I think we've done an episode about gluten in beer, gluten-free beer. And that, I think, is the same way in that, like, there are breweries that reduce the gluten in their beer, but they don't tell anybody. They don't advertise that they do that. There are other breweries that do, and so it's just sort of like it's kind of a self-governance thing with these breweries. There's no official law or regulation that says you have to include lactose. You don't have to say that the beer contains lactose. That's not a technical allergen, it's an intolerance.
Okay.
So like I said, you don't have to put that on your beer. So it kind of like begs the question, what is your motivation, right? Do you want to put it on there to let people know, like, hey, if you're lactose intolerant, maybe you shouldn't drink this beer, right? Or do you just not want to put it on? I don't know. There's just sort of this like, do you care if people are lactose intolerant? There was a great meme today that I sent you that was like it was like the terrified Jesus meme where it's like, you've been drinking beers for hours, like, oh, they contain lactose, like, oh gosh. So you could have some.
You could have an emergency. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe you lose a customer over that. I don't know. So it was interesting because Doug's philosophy for Cycle Brewing is to always disclaim everything.
I like that.
Disclose everything. So he discloses that there's lactose in the beer. He discloses when, actually, for most of the stuff, they disclose that it's being made in the same area as like that's using nuts and all these different like possible allergens, because they just can't. He's like, we clean our stuff, but we're not cleaning to a level that like
surgical standard or something.
It's just that would eliminate all possibility of cross contamination of these like peanut allergens or that kind of stuff. So his philosophy is to just disclose it all. We use all these things in our brewery. I cannot guarantee that there's no cross contamination, and I think that's probably a good business model. Right? Obviously, there's some who, and we'll get more into like the labeling rules, but there's some breweries that don't want to disclose certain things that they don't have to because it may slow down the labeling approval process.
Yeah.
Right. So there's certainly different motivations for why you would or would not disclose that. So lactose being the big one, but there were some other interesting ones like artificial sweeteners.
Yeah.
Right. For the same way, right? Sweeten your beer in a non-caloric way or a non-nutritive way. So the yeast are not feasting on these products, but they're sweetening the beer. I think aspartame is the only, or saccharin, I think, is the only one you're mandated on reporting.
Aspartame too.
Beer. Oh, aspartame.
It's yellow 5, saccharin, aspartame, and if it contains any sulfites.
Okay.
Yeah.
But of course, there's other like monk fruit, stevia. There's other artificial sweeteners. So Doug was saying that he's actually had beers that taste, they kind of have that weird sort of artificial sweetener flavor, and he could tell that was in the beer. But again, you don't have to disclose those things. Honestly, I think like the idea of maybe doing like a diet beer, is kind of like sweetening the beer artificially. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
In this like low calorie world where
I know, right?
Those are the beer segments that are growing, are the low alcohol, no alcohol, low calorie beer.
They really segments. Are, yeah.
So maybe for the health conscious.
So we'll have
or the calorie conscious.
We're saying we're gonna have zero beer.
Yeah, it's beer zero.
Beer zero. So it's gonna be no alcohol and no calories.
Pliny zero. I want Pliny zero.
I don't want to live in that reality, Steven. As long as they still make the good stuff, I'll be fine. But
well, so do you have an opinion on whether those things should be on the beer label, or you just think leave it for like a self-governing kind of thing?
I don't believe in most self-governing.
Yeah, people are pretty terrible.
We try to avoid the politics at all costs on the podcast, but I do believe some regulation is required.
Yeah.
And I think they do have a pretty good job. Obviously, you can nitpick with like, well, why is saccharin on this list? But, other artificial sweeteners are on. And yeah, like, of course, some of that stuff starts to fall apart. And, some of the alcohol stuff is pretty silly. Like, so I found a whole article. It's kind of cool, actually. So this is where I kind of went down like a rabbit hole and got interested, is like, there's all these rules for beer labels. And they kind of tell you like what has to be on there. And a lot of it makes sense. Like, you have to say the style, you have to say how much alcohol content. Like, obviously to me that's a really important thing. Like, I always look at the alcohol content because I want to know what I'm getting myself into. Obviously, you got to put the the Surgeon General warning, which everyone ignores, but it's on every beer. But so there's some stuff that's pretty interesting that's like less obvious. I mean, some of the rules are silly, but I think the overall spirit of the rules are good. I'd actually like to see lactose on that list of stuff you have to disclose, just because like that is something that people are allergic to. So it's kind of a little bit weird that you don't have to put it on there. So like, this is governed by the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, and you actually do have to get your beer label approved. And I kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole. Me and Steven did in the pre-roll. Apparently there's some guy, I know this article is from 2017, so I don't know if he's retired, but there's an individual that works at the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, and he's personally responsible for approving over 12,500 beer labels. And apparently he's like exactly what you'd imagine when you imagine like a government bureaucrat, like bespectacled, eccentric. And he's pretty strict, apparently. So he's enforcing these rules. And then they have, if you go to the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, they have like an interactive label, which is kind of fun. It's like a fake. Actually, I don't know if this is a real brewery, but it's it's like a beer label, and you can click on different parts of it, and it will tell you like what the rules are around the different parts. But what was kind of cool is I found there's a company called Jackrabbit, and they're like a marketing company, but they have a whole article on how to do beer labels, and it's a little bit like seeing the code of the Matrix, because there are a lot of rules around it. Like, I didn't know this, but like the class and type, so like what kind of beer it is, has to be printed horizontally on like the bottom half of the front of the can. And I was like, wait, is this true? And then I started went in my beer fridge, and I'm like, oh, it is true. Like, if you look at the front of the can on the bottom half. Now, there's a couple exceptions where I don't know how they're getting away with it, where I didn't see it. Maybe who's the guy? What's the guy's name? The guy is Kent Martin. He's the guy that has he's the persnickety bureaucrat that's approved like 12,000 labels. Maybe if you get the other guy, he's like the slacker and he just rubber stamps everything. But I would say on the majority of beers, if you look on the front of the can and you start to scroll to the bottom, you will see the style. So like the two cans in front of me, Milkshake, double IPA, and this one says Indian Pale Ale right at the bottom, kind of lower half of the front of the can. And like a little nuance I discovered in the article, you can't just write IPA. You have to write it out Indian Pale Ale. So a lot of times it'll say like, yeah, it's nuts. So there's all these rules, and yeah, maybe they're like overly stifling, but you know, the ones I can get behind are like I'd like to see the alcohol content. It's nice to see, you have to put the name and address of where the producer of the beer is located, which is kind of cool. And yeah, there's a bunch of other rules, like you need the brand name on there, and you need a product barcode, and then you need other like manufacturer IDs and stuff like that. But yeah, I didn't realize there was such a strict set of rules around it.
Like a strict template to the
it's almost
label,
like a template. Really. And what's funny is like once you kind of study this article, we can link it in the show notes. It's kind of fun though, because then when you start to look at beers, you see like, oh, yep, there's that part, there's that part, there's that part. They're following the rules, because apparently if you want to sell beer, you do need. Because
every once in a while I feel like there's like a can that I'm looking over, and I'm like, I can't find the ABV anywhere on here. Like they don't put the ABV on Dogfish Head's 120-minute.
Do they not?
They don't even put it on there. So how do they get away with that?
Well, and the thing I wonder about is like Dogfish Head doesn't make sense to me because it's a pretty big distributor. But if you're like a very local distributor, there's gotta be people who are just like canning stuff and selling it, and they're not even like remotely aware that there's these rules. And I just don't know how they would get caught. There's a concept in public accounting where you have to follow like GAAP regulation. And it's like a scalable, it's hard to describe, but the adherence to the rules scales with your ability to do a more sophisticated accounting of your company. So if you're just like a mom and pop that's making cookies, you have a much lower standard you need to hit than if you're like Budweiser. Like Budweiser needs extremely good accounting records. If you're a mom and pop shop, you need less. Yeah, so I do wonder, and we'd have to, maybe this could be a postscript, but I wonder if there's like in my brief research, it sounds like if you want to sell, you got to get your label approved, but I wonder if you're only selling locally, or like maybe if there's a threshold, like if you're only selling like X amount of cases, you're allowed to slide under the radar. But this is something it'd be fun to follow up on, because I did notice, like maybe there's not ABV on Dogfish Head, and the other one I noticed is I have a Prairie Artisan can, because I looked at all the cans in my fridge, and I feel like they don't have the style on the front of the beer on the lower half, and I'm like, how did they get away with that?
Well, like if you sell a beer with a label that's not approved federally, I mean, what does, like, who's catching you? Is there a reporting agency? Do you have to report?
I mean, theoretically, I guess
there's so many questions.
I guess the alcohol and tobacco tax bureau would have to catch you. But that's the thing, is like their enforcement arm, or like their scanning arm, like do they really send somebody to grocery stores?
Yeah, is it well funded?
Probably not. So, I mean, the moral of the story...
Maybe they hire me to be the one guy to just go around and...
But they can't go to the grocery store and make sure they all have ABVs on them.
Yeah.
But it's fun. We'll have some links. You guys can check it out. I mean, this is a rich topic for postscripts, because it's like It's created thousands of more questions in my mind, but
so many questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think like if you probably look at the vast majority of the cans, they're gonna follow this.
It does seem like they follow the template. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I will reach out to Dogfish Head for comment.
Be like, hey, do you know you're not following the rules? Get him a little scared.
Yeah, I have reported you to the TTV.
No, Stephen, don't do it. That's a little too heavy-handed.
Well, I won't actually report them out.
Just say you're trying to assist them with their adherence with federal law, and that if they could provide samples to the podcast, we might be inclined to overlook their infractions. Is that blackmail? Never mind. Don't do that. Yeah.
All your B+ beers, send them our way.
Yes, the B+ brewery. Now they're never going to send us beer, Steven.
Yeah. Oops. Okay, so some of the other interesting things, you cannot put low alcohol or reduced alcohol unless the beer is 2.5% ABV or less.
Okay.
You can't even put ABV. There's all these, you have to do like ALC by
VOL.
VOL or whatever. Yeah. There's a bunch of them that are approved, but just ABV is not approved. Non-alcoholic applies to 0.5% ABV or less, and alcohol-free has to be fully 0%. But the yellow number 5 thing is really funny to me because there's a beer by Prairie Artisan Ales. It's their like Skittles. I think it's a Skittles beer, or maybe it's a Sour Patch Kids beer. They have a Sour Patch Kids sour. Okay. And they did put yellow number 5 in the ingredients list, and I was kind of surprised that they would do that. I was like, they don't really have to do that, do they? But they do. So it makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, the yellow 5. That's the only color you got to disclose.
Wasn't that was a big like Mountain Dew, right? It had yellow number 5.
It sure does. I think it does. Yeah.
The other thing too is the size of the container.
Oh, that one was wild.
How, like, it can't say 16 ounces.
I guess if it's 16 ounces, it has to say 1 pint. You can only refer to ounces. I'm looking at my beers right here.
I know. How big is mine? Oh, mine's a 750 milliliter bottle, so it says 1 pint, 9.4 ounces.
Yeah, so like to the standard, 1 pint means 16 ounces. So if it is 16 ounces, it's required to say 1 pint. So on the Double Blazed Orange, it says 1 pint. And then parenthetically, it says 16 ounces. And then on the Juicy Bits, it says 1 pint. The only time you're allowed to list ounces is if, one, you say the 1 pint first, I think, or maybe...
Right, yeah.
With it. But if it's like, say you're in the... What's the taller can called? The 20-ounce can?
Like a tall boy?
Yeah, tall boy. You could either put 20 ounces or you could put 1 pint... 4 ounces,
4 ounces,
I think.
Yeah.
But pint is like a very, I don't know. It's a...
Can't just put 16 ounces.
It's so weird. All this stuff is so strange. But, you know, it probably ties back to something. And I know there's like the Imperial pint. Like, isn't the quantity of a pint is different in the US versus like the UK? I think it is. So, like, we could postscript this too. But they make... Whoever has the bigger pint makes fun of the other country for having, like, that's not a pint. Like, you're skimping me 4 ounces or whatever. Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else. I think just sort of the debate on whether breweries should have to list these things. I don't know how much people care about that now. Budweiser did a thing recently where they started listing the ingredients on the beer. Have you seen that?
No.
Yeah, where they list like water, barley, rice, yeast, and hops or something like that. Like, it's very simple ingredient list, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't...
Yeah.
It doesn't really like tell you anything.
It's basically the... what's the beer purity laws? The
Reinheitsgebot.
Yeah, Reinheitsgebot. It's like, these are the 5 things that can be in a beer, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's like seeing an ingredient list on water, or like on bottled water, where it says water.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you're not really giving away a like recipe when you say water, barley, yeast, hops.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's like there's so many, you're not giving anything away. I guess my last comment on this, and I'd like to see this. This is my I think it's expensive and hard to do. But and again, this is like a sliding scale thing. Like I think if you could afford to do it, it'd be really nice to see calorie counts on beers.
Oh, I'm with you on that.
I know that's like, yeah, that's pretty, it's pretty, it's, the government getting involved, but like how many calories is in this double blazed orange? This thing has got to be ruining my day, right?
Well, it's interesting because you have beers that are intentionally tailored, right? Like
like the low carb beers, right?
Yeah, like a Miller Lite or something that says 95 calories. Like they literally put that on the bottle because that's their selling point, right?
Right.
It's a quote unquote full flavored American lager with low ABV, low calories. I guess in a way, in that from the like self-governing standpoint of like, well, look, dude, if you're getting a big 16 ounce pour of some hazy IPA or a smoothie sour, I mean, are you worried about calories? Like, I don't know. So, but I agree. I would love to know because you could make informed decisions.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a huge calorie counter.
It's like they did that with fast food restaurants and stuff, where you have to put the calorie counts. And it's not like when I go there, I'm like, oh, I thought I was going to get a low calorie food, but I guess not. Like I know what I'm doing when I go there, but it's also nice to be able to like make a decision based on calorie counts.
Right.
Maybe I get something different than I would have or something. So.
Well, and if you're trying to hit like a certain calorie count per day, you can still eat fast food. I think it's funny because early in our relationship, my wife and I dieted together and we ate a lot of Taco Bell at the time. And like, you can, like, calories at the end of the day are calories. Like if you count calories in, calories out, like you can make strides towards whatever goal you have. It doesn't really matter what form the calories come in. You just have to have, and actually in a certain way, it's actually easier with fast food and stuff because you do know, like those are explicit quantities. Whereas if like you prepare something yourself, it's like it's
so much harder to know.
Really hard to calculate. Yeah. So
much harder to know, unless you're like weighing everything.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'd like to see it. Obviously, I wouldn't. If I was in charge, I wouldn't require it. But it would be cool if, just especially for like mainstay stuff, like Weldwerks gonna make juicy bits forever, right?
Yeah, like you just need to do that analysis one time.
Yeah, do it one time and then you can print it on the can. But I'm sure they don't want to.
Yeah. Have you ever used like MyFitnessPal or
those kind of apps
or Lose It? I want to see. I'm gonna do a quick experiment here and just put in juicy bits.
Oh, to see, like, I know there's
it has it in here.
Oh,
Juicy Bits, Weldwerks Brewing, 145 calories for 8 ounces.
Okay, is that reported from them?
I don't know. It's just in the app, so somebody could have made this.
I know there's like you can reverse engineer the calories based on the ABV.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not.
This is 16 ounces, 290 calories.
Oof. It's a lot.
Yeah. That is a lot.
I mean, think about it. You drink 2 of those.
It's like a soda.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I'm sure this double blazed orange.
And it's all carbs.
Yeah. Liquid bread. They don't call it liquid bread for nothing, right?
Right. I just got another Tabor notification of a pre-order. Just can't stop, won't stop.
It won't stop, Steven.
And it's not even. It's not a beer that should be pre-ordered. That's probably what's making me the most upset, is that I think it must be coming from the brewery side.
I think it is.
The brewery saying, okay, tell us how much you need, and that's how much we'll send you. So the only way Tabor can do that is just to a pre-order.
Is it the
right? It must be that. Is that family business
pale
beer
ale?
one?
Yeah, I've literally never heard about this. Yeah, this is not a highly rated beer. I mean, it's fine. It's just not like world class.
No,
right?
It's a pretty good local beer here, but
it's strange that they're pre-ordering that. It kind of annoys me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
They might be experimenting too.
It may be that I have a feeling they're presenting it. Like if you didn't present that option to the brewery, maybe they wouldn't do it. Like they'd be like, oh yeah, we'll send you this much beer or whatever. But they're presenting the option of like, whoa, we could do it as a pre-order and then we'll let you know and then we'll know exactly how much we need. The brewery's like, oh yeah, okay, that sounds good too. That's
like a no-brainer. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what's happening over at Tabor.
Yeah, they're experimenting. As long as they still bring me beers I have no access to, I'll tolerate it.
Yeah, I guess we'll allow it.
We'll allow it. I'll keep giving them all my money. All right, anything else we want to cover on adjuncts labeling disclosures?
No. I will add, I just think the gluten-free thing is interesting. Because that's actually a really common one, and one that, like, I have multiple friends that just don't drink beer.
I see. It's too risky.
Yeah. And I feel like that would be one that would be worth disclosing if you go through the trouble of gluten reducing your beer. I don't know, make that more known. I don't know. I mean, maybe they think it's hurting them more than it's helping them.
What brewery was it that they degluten all their beers?
I think it's Blue Note.
Okay, yeah.
I almost called them today, actually, to check and see, because I feel somebody told me that once that they do, and I don't know if that's actually true, so I have to verify it. But if they do, I mean, they don't advertise it, so.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I wonder if other breweries do that as well.
But anyway.
More mysteries. This is an episode that truly brought more questions than answers.
Next time, a month from now, we'll answer.
I know, right? Yeah. I told my friends about this podcast, and I was like, yeah, we used to record once a week. Yeah.
Those are the days.
Before I was a parent. We'll get back to this. I strive to return to our once a week schedule. 7 years from now.
No, this is good. It's funny because, now when we do an episode, my editing, like, it used to be I had more pressure to edit every week and, and like get it out on Monday. And now I'm like, I'll just get it out when I get it.
Get it out when you get it out. Yeah, we got time.
And some of my friends that listen are like, hello, we need another episode.
Yeah, we need that drip.
I'm like, okay, I'll get it out.
That's awesome.
So,
all right, cool.
We had the holidays and stuff too. That was.
Yeah, we'll get back into the grind, back into the flow.
Now it's January. Nothing exciting's happening.
No, nothing fun's happening for a long time.
Cool. Well, this beer just got better as it warmed, so it's fantastic.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say, as much as I complained about the Milkshake IPA, I drank more of it. Of the two.
I don't know what the weather is like there, but it's
cold, rainy.
It's very cold here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's cold and rainy here too. So this like warming, spicy beer is pretty perfect.
That's awesome. All right, cool. Well, this has been Attenuation. We are on Instagram at attenuation.podcast. I started posting pictures on there, Steven.
I know. I like it.
Because
makes me happy.
I'm taking pictures for my Untapped account. So then I just cross-post them on Instagram. And you can email us at contact.attenuation@gmail.com. And this has been episode 103 of Attenuation, a beer podcast. My name is Jason, and I'm joined by my best friend since 8th grade, Steven.
That's me.
We're saying cheers, and we'll see you next time we record for episode 104.
All right. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Attenuation, a beer podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Instagram or Facebook for lots of extra fun content. See you next episode. Cheers.